Well, I drove back from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania yesterday. I left at 4 o'clock in the afternoon so that I could be back in time to lead our service this morning. I was attending a board meeting for UU Justice PA. And it was a long, arduous drive. For any of you who've made that drive, there's no real quick or easy way to do it. And I think I went through several different weather systems as I was coming home. So I passed through some really, really pouring down rain, and then I thought, oh, that's over. And then there was this windstorm that almost blew me off the road. And but as I came over the kind of the mountains and was coming back down towards Erie, there was a beautiful red sunset, this coral sky that featured this red ball, just as vivid red as a poppy or as one of these beautiful tulips here. And I thought, what a perfect way to end this Earth Day. Earth Day, as I shared earlier, was begun in 1970 as a response, in part, to Rachel Carson's book, her clarion call to action, Silent Spring. And there were many other forces that sort of joined to create this new holiday. For those of you that were alive on Earth Day, as I was, maybe take a moment today to think back to where you were that day, whether you were a part of an Earth Day celebration or protest, and what that was like for you. Or if you weren't alive in 1970, April 22nd, perhaps you have had a memory of an Earth Day since then that is vivid for you. How did it touch your heart? How did you celebrate? How do you like to celebrate Earth Day, this special day that we set aside to honor the planet that gives us life? I have decided to honor our Sunday, which is the day after Earth Day, by sharing a little bit about my religious orientation with you, known as religious naturalism. And I want to preface this by saying that I get many requests about what I believe in or what my personal theology is. Of course, it's nice for us Unitarian Universalists to share that with one another. But I also want to be very clear that I see my role as your minister not to amplify my own theology and to trumpet my own personal way of seeing the world, but to represent our pluralistic faith by sharing many different perspectives, many different theologies, many different understandings. And I really believe that our sacred work as UUs is to wrestle with new and different and sometimes unfamiliar and uncomfortable ideas while continuing to love the folks that believe things very different than what we believe in. So while I'm sharing my theology today, because it's Earth Day and because it feels like a really special time for me, I just wanted to preface my remarks with that note about our pluralistic faith. Religious naturalism is is an orientation that in some ways is very new and in some ways is as old as humanity. When we look over at the tree of different faiths that we have on our wall and think about where religious naturalism would fit in, we don't really have a kind of a symbol yet for religious naturalism. And I hope it doesn't sound too much of a power grab for me to say that I think maybe religious naturalism would be the whole tree itself, the tree itself. And I'll explain what I mean by that as we go along. Religious naturalism has been associated with philosophers and theologians through the ages. Of course, it's us now going back and saying, well, that person was a religious naturalist and that person was a religious naturalist. But some of the names that you probably have heard of include Zeno, Baruch Spinoza, Lao Tzu, the father of Taoism, and even the Buddha. They have all been associated with religious naturalism. What religious naturalism is not, I will start with. It is not the same as humanism, although many of the points of view are shared with a humanistic outlook. What makes religious naturalism most different than humanism from humanism is that the Humanist Manifesto has actually explicitly stated that human needs and human thriving is the most important thing to put at the center of their faith. And for religious naturalism, we widen the circle to include all the creatures of the earth and even the earth itself. So rather than centering in our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, which is certainly an important principle for all of us, I would say that religious naturalism is most couched in the seventh principle, which is the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. Religious naturalism is not the same as paganism, although it shares an earth-based and nature-based outlook. It is not the same as Native American spirituality. It is its own thing. It is not the same as transcendentalism, although our transcendentalist Unitarian ancestors certainly saw great beauty in nature and found great inspiration in nature. But religious naturalism actually goes further in saying that we are an integral part of nature and not separate from it. So let me start with the naturalism piece and explain a little bit about what that means, and then we'll move back to the religious part. So naturalism is a perspective that takes the position that there are not supernatural beings or supernatural worlds other than this world or this universe that we're not able to perceive or understand. There's not a wall between a supernatural world where, say, gods and goddesses are operating and then our world where we only suffer the effects of those actions. So in naturalism, we believe that everything is here, everything that is here is all that is here. And it is not simply a science and reason only perspective. Values, virtues, emotions, things that we can't necessarily see, identify, pinpoint, or measure are still considered real. It's just that we do not postulate a supernatural world of things that are beyond our ability to experience or understand. And so that's naturalism. And then you might be wondering about the term religious. So religion is actually a term that comes from the word religare, which means to bind together. It's the same root as the word ligament. So ligaments in your body bind your tissues and your muscles and your bones together. Religare is something that means to, religion is a word that came from that understanding, to bind something together. So, what we do is we bind our community together, right, in this process of deciding what is most important to us, right, meaning making, deciding what is of intimate and ultimate meaning for each individual person and as a community. So that's what we mean when we say religion. And religious naturalists find particular reverence and awe in the wonder that is our planet and in the story of how life arose here on the planet. And many religious naturalists express that in itself is enough to take your breath away. The fact that our universe arose at all, and then the fact that life sprang forth on our little planet, which is one of so many in the universe, and that we are here to be a part of it. So that sense of transcending wonder and awe that is mentioned in our first source, out of our 6 sources of wisdom and understanding, is particularly important to religious naturalists. Now, when we talk about nature as an object of reverence or worship, we do not mean that everything in nature is good and results in thriving, right? We know this is not true. We know that there are natural disasters, and we know that there are chains of life where some beings perish in order to feed other beings. And so the ambiguity of that is an important thing for religious naturalists, that we're not just celebrating this beautiful, good thing that only results in loveliness for everyone, right? That nature is a powerful force, and it can be both creative and destructive. And yet, we feel that it is still the proper object of worship and reverence. Some of the most important tenets of religious naturalism are that we humans are a part of nature, not separate from it. And I think we've had various ways to get at that during this service. And also that this life here on planet Earth is the life that we have. That we don't know what happens when we die, but that this is the life that we can make choices about. This is the life that we can have meaningful responses to. And so this is our home, the earth, and how we treat it matters. And religious naturalists believe that we can and we should study various aspects of nature to come to understand how the world works. And yet science and reason are not the only portals to understanding and transformation and growth. As religious naturalist Brian Swim says and writes, we are the universe becoming aware of itself. That as humanity grows and begins to understand its place in the web of things, that we also can help the entire universe become more aware of itself as an organism, as a functioning system. And we need to understand the damage that we have done to our siblings and our planet, and correct that. Now we can become more aware and more alive through the use of our human faculty story. We can locate ourselves in this great epic story of the appearance of our universe, of our solar system, of our planet, and then of life, and then the marvelous story that we heard today, the story of evolution. We can continue to glory in that beautiful story and find our place in it and celebrate. Our religious work then is to knit ourselves back together into the fabric of reality after dreaming ourselves separate from it, knitting ourselves back into the fabric of reality. Now, religious naturalism is a fairly new modern movement. We do have a website, the Religious Naturalism Association, and we have very good representation among Unitarian Universalists, both ministers and lay people, so I invite you to check that out if you would like to, if this sounds good to you. One of our issues is that we're short on ritual and tradition, and so I propose that in a religious naturalist system, Earth Day, and then summer and winter solstices, and autumn and spring equinoxes should be the high holy days of the religious naturalist way of looking at the world. What else can we do to be good religious naturalists? Well, I'm sure that we have all heard messages about how we need to be better stewards of our home, the earth. We need to consume less. We need to become more reverent about this beautiful place that we live in and on. And we need to find our place in the family of all life. And this miracle that despite the unimaginable odds, there's something here at all. Something here at all instead of nothing. And that life arose here instead of someplace else. And that we, each of us, is here to be a witness and a participant in that amazing story. As I drove over that ridge and saw that beautiful sunset last night, I also understood that the light that was hitting my eyes had actually left the sun almost 9 minutes earlier, and that I was seeing an after image. I understood that the light waves of different lengths were what accounted for the variety of colors that I was seeing in the sky, and I understood that particles of moisture and other substances in the atmosphere were causing that light to reflect and refract, creating an even more spectacular show. And it was also true that as I drove home in my petroleum-fueled Subaru, that I was contributing to the climate crisis in which we now find ourselves. And that still didn't stop me from tearing up at the wonder and the beauty of it all on our ultimately beloved planet. All of these things were true all at once. And all of it is held in my theology of a religion of nature. And so my prayer for today is that we learn the lessons of a religious naturalism, whatever we may believe in, before it's too late. May we become good ancestors and good neighbors and good siblings and good stewards of this, the only home we've ever known. Thank you.
We're closer now than ever before. There's love in our world and we're showing it more. Our world says, welcome stranger, everybody's a friend. You're my beautiful friend. Favorite stories don't end in our world. Some say our world is getting too small. I say with kindness, there's room for us all. Our world is always changing. Every day's a surprise. I've never been so surprised. Love can